Okay. All right. Hi, guys. What I'm doing today is going through the biology paper 2 for AQA coming up this week. Hope everyone had a good English exam. And what we're looking at is the nervous system, endocrine system, fertility, the menstrual cycle, diabetes, control of glucose, and that type of thing. So, what you can do, hi Adam, um, looking at the endocrine system, does anybody know the name of the glands 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 and what hormone they produce? Let me just see. What's my connection like? Okay. Yeah. Hi, Sophie. Yeah. One is the pituitary gland. That's right. Found in the brain. And anyone know any of the other glands? Yeah, you're right. It's known as the master gland. It produces hormones that control the other glands. So the pituitary gland, known as the master gland, produces hormones to control the other gland. The example you need to know is that it produces thyroxine stimulating hormone TSH, which controls the thyroid gland. Do you know what number 2 is? 2 is the thyroid gland. There is an adrenal gland, but which number's the adrenal gland, Sophie? Um, the one in the neck is the thyroid gland, and that produces thyroxine. That's right, Adam, which controls um, your metabolism, how quickly you use food. So good. Yeah, Adam's right. It's number 3, Sophie. So it's just sits on top of your kidneys. You've got 2 adrenal glands, one on each side. And do you know what hormone the adrenal glands produce? If I'm looking to the side, it's because I'm looking at the chat on the side. Um, Adrenaline, good. So you need to know that the adrenal gland produces adrenaline. And what's adrenaline? What is adrenaline in charge of? Well done, Sophie. Well done, Adam. What's it in charge of? What does adrenaline do? Can you remember why you release adrenaline in your body? Yeah, fight or flight. Awesome. Well done. So it's the fight or flight hormone. That means you're ready to fight for your life or run for your life. So some of the things it stimulates, it increases your heart rate so that you deliver more oxygen to the muscles. Why would you need more oxygen to your muscles? You can say fight or flight in the exam. It's perfectly point scoring if you say it's for fight or flight, but they may ask more detail and say, give an example of how the fight and flight helps, and you would say increases heart rate is the specific one they want. If you're studying AQA, they want the increases heart rate, which delivers more oxygen to the muscles. Why do we need more oxygen in the muscles? Why do you need more oxygen in, well, yeah, I haven't got any muscles, but why do you need more oxygen in your muscles? Anyone? Oxygen, muscle cells. What's oxygen needed for? Okay, yes, to release energy. Good. Going one step ahead, before you release energy, what have you got to do that releases the energy? Yeah, so we can fight better or run. It's not just about fighting, it's flight as well. Run for your life. So, what else can you release? How do you release energy? Yeah, respire. Well done, Claire. Yeah, so basically, fight or flight, you put it all together, guys, between you. So, fight or flight increases your heart rate, delivers more oxygen to the muscles, so you can do more aerobic respiration and release more energy. So, that could come up. It's linked to the adrenal glands, which are found on top of the kidney. Right, 2 more glands, 3 more glands. Oh no, there's that was number 4, the adrenal glands, the little one. We missed number 3. What is number 3? Number 3 is an organ, also behaves as a gland by secreting hormones. Glands secrete hormones, so it's the pancreas, Claire. Awesome. What hormone does the pancreas secrete, everyone? By the way, you can always share the link if you've got friends that want to be revising tonight. But a lot of people are probably recovering from the English exam. I don't know how that did today. Yeah, insulin, guys. Well done, all three of you. Awesome. Yeah, and that. What does insulin do? You maybe just ask quickly. What does insulin regulate or control? Your blood something level. Yeah, blood glucose level. Awesome. Well done. You can also say it releases glucagon because it does release glucagon. Yes, so you could also say it releases glucagon. When it releases glucagon or insulin, slightly different. So they might give you some context so that you know which one to choose, which gets released, which we'll go into in a little bit. Number 5, that's supposed to be reproductive system, so of a female. So what's number 5? Estrogen, yeah, is released. And what's the organ? The hormone is estrogen. What's the organ or gland that releases estrogen? Ovaries, well done, yeah. So the ovaries release estrogen. Estrogen's got lots of jobs. It's in charge of the secondary sexual characteristics in females. So it does all the processes you go through, the physical changes in puberty. Estrogen does that, but more importantly, it plays a role in the menstrual cycle, which is developing the lining of the uterus. I think we may have lost. I don't know if we lost connection. Okay, 6 is the testes. Well done, Adam. What hormone is released by the testes? Anyone know what hormone in the testes? Testosterone. Awesome. What does testosterone do? It's got 2 jobs. It's actually got more than 2 jobs, but for GCSE, 2 jobs. You all right, Sophie? So, sperm production. That's absolutely right. Make sperm. Also, testosterone is in charge of the secondary sexual characteristics in boys. Not sure if that comes up in everybody's syllabus, but it's the secondary sexual characteristic in boys. So shoulders getting wider, facial hair, underarm hair, that type of thing as well. Yeah, the testes are where sperm is made and they produce testosterone, which is in charge of sperm production. Okay, cool. Right. Now we can move on from this because you guys actually know this really well. And you can always rewatch this as revision. So quickly then, let's do a couple of questions. Let me just blow this up because can you see that? Right. Okay, guys, what's the answer here? Yeah, it regulates puberty. What's the answer here? You've got number 2, Adam. Everyone agree with that? Number 2? Yeah, pituitary gland. The one in the brain is the pituitary gland. Okay, the master gland. Awesome. Well done. Right, let's zing. And we got another one here, which is name the organs. Name the glands, sorry, in a female. But obviously, most of them are the same as men. Well done, Sophie. What are these 3 then? We got one in the neck, one on the kidneys, and one down below near the reproductive system. Number 1 is the... Oh, that's the hormone, Adam, for 2. It wants the name of the gland. So it does release adrenaline, but what's the name of the gland found on top of the kidneys? Yeah, Claire's got the order. Thyroid at the top in the neck, adrenal glands on top of the kidneys, and the ovaries in the female reproductive system. Great. By the way, just a side fact. Boys have testes, girls have ovaries. They're actually quite similar structures. The only reason that boys are unlucky enough that theirs hang outside their body, which is any boy who's played football or taken a football to the testes can tell you how painful it is because the sperm actually die at 37 degrees at the body temperature. So the testes aren't allowed to be inside the body. They have to come away from the body, which is a bit of a pain if you're a boy. Whereas girls, luckily, eggs can survive at 37, so they're made inside the body. If only sperm could take 37 degrees, boys wouldn't have that kind of weakness hanging around. Right, let's move on. Enough extracurricular waffle. Okay, let's do the nervous system. So, yes. Okay, we have egg master, so the egg master should be well on top of the ovaries and what they do. Right guys, reflex arc, you need to know your reflex arc. You could get a 5 marker, 4 marker on the reflex arc. So how you need to know the 7, oh, that's 9 steps. Jeez, I've gone a bit overboard there. Normally you'll only need 5 of these steps to remember in the exam, or 4. If it's a 6 marker, great, but there's 9 things you can actually say. So if it came up in paper 1, you won't need the reflex arc, Adam. So I will whiz through this quickly. You could go make yourself a tea or an orange juice or something, and this is AQA have this in paper 2. So we're going to be going through this for like 5 minutes, the nervous system. So, guys, going to put your hand on a fire here. You're going to put your hand on top of a fire. Yeah, I'm going to do the menstrual cycle. Gonna do menstrual cycle. Yeah. Okay, so here you see, yeah, there is an effector. There's definitely an effector. Okay, let me run through it, guys. Awesome, I like that, Eggmaster. Awesomeness. We have the stimulus, so let me run through it. We've got stimulus right here is the heat, the fire. You won't often find that on the mark scheme, funnily enough, but it's the change in the environment, and that is detected by the receptor here. The receptors, you got 5 places in your body where receptors are found. All over your skin are touch and heat receptors. Your tongue has taste receptors. Your nose has smell receptors. You don't need to know the proper name, olfactory, but they're just smell receptors. Your eyes have rod and cone cells at the back, which detect light, and they're light receptors. So you've got touch, taste, smell, and sight, and these receptors. These will create an electrical impulse, George, absolutely, and the electrical impulse will travel down the sensory neurons. So we've got a sensory neuron. I'm going to draw an arrow to show the direction. The sensory neuron comes here, and then it swaps over to another neuron here. Does anybody know what we call the neuron in between that links the sensory neuron? Actually, it takes the message through the spinal cord or the brain. So if I was numbering these, which I should be, I'll be going 1, 2, then we got 3. Yeah, receptor, sensory, CNS, close, MUFC. The motor comes after the relay. So what we have here, I'm going to long this a little bit, but after the sensory neuron, we have a gap called the synapse. Now the synapse appears here. I'm just going to circle it in red for you guys. The synapse is here. It's a gap between the 2 neurons. The relay neuron, you can actually, a lot of the time for the relay neuron, you can say CNS or coordinator. The reason is your relay neuron runs through your spine or your brain. So your brain and spine are known as the central nervous system, and the relay neuron runs through them. This weird little diagram, this weird little thing under where I've written synapse, that's one of these bones you can feel with your finger in your neck. If you rub your finger up your neck, you'll feel those bones. That's a vertebrae. So this reflex arc is going through the spine. Some of them go through your brain, and the relay neuron will go through the brain, but as it comes back out the brain, it will connect to a motor neuron. But before it connects to the motor neuron, let's have a little look here. Right, it's going to connect to our motor neuron. Oops, I was going to draw that coming out the person's arm. The motor neuron then comes to the muscle. This could be forearm muscle. This is the worst muscle drawing in the world. That's a muscle in someone's forearm. So, but before we do that, we have a gap. What do we call the gap between two neurons? No, it doesn't skip the CNS. It won't skip the central nervous system. It has to go through the central nervous system. But your spine can't dream or think. So reflex ones that you don't want to think about that are fast reactions, they go through the spine because your spine doesn't have to think. But there are parts of your brain that can't think either. They're called unconscious. So they can't think. And they also can have reflex arcs going through them. The thinking part of your brain doesn't have relay neurons and reflex arcs going through it because it doesn't control reflexes. This is another synapse. So there's two synapses, one in between the sensory to relay and one between the relay to motor. Okay, I better number this up. I haven't really numbered this very well. So that would be 4. That would be number 5. You can say relay neuron, central nervous system, or coordinator. Number 6 would be another synapse. 7 is the motor neuron. 8, we have the effector. Now, if you're asked what an effector is, there's 2 possible answers. Do you know what the 2 possible answers are for an effector? 2 answers for an effector. Anyone know? Yeah, I'm gonna zip through the synapse after this. Well done, Eggmaster. It's a muscle or gland, and well done, Claire. Yeah, the effector is a muscle or a gland, and if it's a muscle, they've always asked about effectors being muscles. By the way, this diagram is always someone pulling their hand away. So if it's a muscle, the muscle contracts. Oh my god, I just spat on my screen. And you pull your arm away. Okay. And we call the response. So the response would be number 9. Now, you don't normally need to mention stimulus or response. They're like the before effects and after effects. The response is hand pulled away. Okay. Yeah, good. Glands release hormones. Watch out for that because they haven't really asked one on that yet. So they could do a fight and flight one. They could be like, describe how someone's heart rate increases when they see, I don't know, a big scary monster running at them, and describe the reflex arc. And it could be your eyes see the monster, signal goes down the sensory neuron, an impulse, travels along the sensory neuron to the relay neuron in the brain or spine, and then it goes down a motor neuron to your adrenal glands and releases adrenaline, which increases your heart rate and blah de blah. So they could work a gland in there as the effector, so watch out for that. Now, someone was mentioning the synapse, so I'm going to zing to the synapse, okay? Any questions about this, by the way, before we go on to what happens at the synapse? Yeah, what didn't I mention? There's something I missed. I missed the name of the message. What do we call the message? What type of message or signal? Electrical impulses. Nice. So, yeah, I won't finish the sentence, but you have to say impulse. Get all the marks for the word impulse. Impulses are electrical, so you get the mark for that. Or you can say electrical signal or electrical message. You cannot say electricity because it's not electricity. So it's not quite the same as electricity. It's an electrical signal, message, or impulse. You don't have to say electrical impulse, but you can do just to cover yourself. How do reflexes prevent injury? So say I'm touching a hot cup and I go, wow, pull my hand away. How does that prevent injury? You can say electrical impulse, or you can just say impulse. So guys, 2 marks. How do reflexes prevent injury? What is it about them? Imagine this is hot. I touch it. Ooh. What is it about your reflex that stops your cells being destroyed? You're always going to get some cells. I burnt myself earlier in the week, but it could have been a lot worse. Pull it away before you get burnt. Yeah, it's fast. So your first mark, if you're asked, is it's fast, and they're unconscious. I can't spell unconscious, so, or involuntary. Involuntary means the same as unconscious, which makes them rapid or fast, prevents damage to cells. Yeah. So the main thing about reflexes is they're really fast because you don't think about them. Okay. And the not thinking bit is saying they're unconscious or they're involuntary. Right, let's have a look at synapses. So give me 2 seconds. What the hell? Nope. What have I done here? Oh, let's just jam on with that. There we go. Yeah, going to do menstrual cycle after this. So I will be doing the menstrual cycle. So what's going to happen at the synapse? Let me just go through this. Anybody know what happens at the synapse? Pretty much done the nervous system, covered there, but the synapse is part of the nervous system. Yeah, awesome, Eggmaster. Chemical diffusion. So, what is a synapse? If you're asked what is a synapse, what is it? It's this. What is the synapse then? What have I circled? This could be sensory neuron. If that's a sensory neuron, what's the other neuron on the other side, guys? If that's the sensory, yeah, that could be a relay. Well done. That could be a relay neuron. Yeah, nice. A junction between 2 neurons. Super. That's the synapse. Now, what have we done there? I've made a blue circle. Great. Okay, now it's not just between the sensory and the relay. Where is the other synapse between? So there's one between the sensory and the relay. What other 2 neurons are connected? Motor. What's the motor connected to, Eggmaster? Is the motor connected to the sensory? What's it connected to? So we go sensory, relay, yep, and then to the motor. So I could say this is relay and motor. There are some really quick reflexes. Your knee jerk, when someone hits your knee and it jerks, that is just sensory straight to motor. There's no relay connection with that one. But the gap between 2 neurons. Right, now what actually happens is an electrical signal comes like that. This is the impulse. It comes here and it hits the chemicals, and the chemicals are found only in one end, so the sensory neuron, and they then diffuse from a high concentration to a low across the gap, and they then bind with special receptors on the other side. A bit like your enzymes, which you did in paper 1, and your lock and key, just like that, although they're not enzymes, they have a special shape and they fit here on the other side on the relay neuron, and they cause the electrical message or the impulse to continue down the other side. So temporarily, the message here is electrical, then it swaps to chemical in the synapse. The synapse is that gap there where it's chemical, and then it goes back to an electrical message here. So electrical, chemical, electrical. Okay. Yeah, and the job of the synapse you don't have to know, but if you wanted to know what a synapse does, it makes sure the messages can only go in one direction through the nervous system. Okay, so they can't go back the other way. The reason why those funky little blue receptors I've drawn are not on the sensory neuron, so the chemicals cannot go back the other way and cause a signal to go backwards, basically. So it keeps them all going in one direction. Okay. So are synapse only linked with relay and reflex stuff? Yes, synapses are only in the nervous system between the relay neuron and the motor neuron, or the relay and the sensory neuron. There is actually a synapse between your effector, your muscle, and the motor neuron. There's a little gap just before you contract your muscle, but you don't need to know about that. Right, guys. Let's see. Let's see if you can do this question. Once we 2 more minutes on these questions, and then we're going to zing on to another topic. Okay. What do you... Okay, guys. So what we're looking at here, again, I recommend you guys use a highlighter in your exam. So a girl picks up a hot plate. Reflex action causes her to drop it. Diagram shows the things involved. We've got A, B, C, D. What do you think A, B, C, D are? Claire's going for muscle, receptor, neuron, spinal cord. Yeah, Claire, you made a comment, never just normal sensory to motor. There are some reflex arcs that are sensory neurons to motor with no relay in between. Yeah, muscle, receptor, sensory neurons, CNS. Let's have a little look. We got a muscle here, so A is definitely muscle. Then B is a receptor because it's in the fingertips, in the skin. So, whoops, receptor is that one there. C is the sensory neuron. So yeah, we're just going neuron as they haven't labeled it as sensory, but it's sensory neuron. And D, what they are? D is your spinal cord, actually. Yeah, central nervous system, spinal cord. Awesome. Well done, guys. Right, let's have a go at another one. Okay, so be prepared. You might get one of these. They're quite nice questions, really. See if you can do this one. 3 labels. Yeah. And then after this, we'll move on to another topic. Sensory relay motor. Let me see. Sensory at the top because it's connected to the receptor. Relays in the middle. Motor. Yeah, nice. Yep. Sensory relay motor. Awesome. I was just checking one thing for... Okay. Yeah. Right, we're going to do the control of glucose, I think, next, and then the menstrual cycle. So if Adam is still around, he will be pleased because we're going to do control of glucose and the menstrual. Right, those were really easy. They're more foundation type questions or just straight memory recall questions. You could get one if you're on the higher paper, but they're more likely to be on the foundation. But they do sometimes come on a higher as well, label the different bits. This is the more likely question. 4-mark question. You now got to put it all together. Describe how the stimulus, the hot pan basically, reaches the muscle in the arm. And of course the person pulls away. So 4 marks. Can you get 4 other things? I'm sure you guys would be fine with this. Do you know what? I'm just going to skip straight to the answers. You can always rewatch, pause it and practice writing it out and seeing if you can get there. But basically you just need to describe the path. So you just got to describe the path, how it works, what's traveling down what neuron. Remember the gaps, remember the names of the neurons, what is traveling down them, where it's going, and that's going to get you the 4 marks. So you're really looking at, here's your answers. Some of you might be all over this anyway. So you've got a receptor, electrical impulse or impulse, travels along neurons, mentioning the sense goes along the sensory neuron first, then the relay, then the motor. You can mention it crosses the synapse as a chemical or diffuses across the synapse as a chemical. Sure, you get all of that, and then it reaches the effector, the muscle. You contract and pull it away, but it wasn't asking for the final bit, contracting at the effector and pulling away. It was asking for the bit in between. Okay, guys. No, not another one. In those big long questions, you this is the they've not really asked big questions on the synapse. This is probably the biggest question they've ever asked on the synapse. What type of neuron is X? If that's the relay neuron, guys, what neuron is this? Yeah, it could be the motor. Yeah, it's got to be the motor actually, because it's after the relay. Can only be the motor, HC. Well done. So that would be motor. Now, 3 marks about the synapse. Normally the synapse, they just say, what is a synapse? 1 mark. And you say, gap between 2 neurons. Brilliant. Or they say, how is the message carried across the synapse? 1 mark. So here it says, how does the message pass from the relay to neuron X? 3 marks. So what we're going to say here, we want 3 key words about how the message goes across the synapse. Can you come up with 3 key words for how the message goes across the synapse? What form is it in? How does it travel? Anyone? Sorry, there's a film called Ferris Bueller's Day Off where the teacher always goes, anyone? 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 Yeah, chemical. I wouldn't say impulses. Chemical will get you a mark. You're right, chemical. And diffuse across the gap. I don't think they'll say connector receptors on the other side. Yeah, chemicals diffuse across the gap. And there you go. Here's the answers. Motor neuron. Chemical crosses the gap. Better to say diffuses across the gap. Attaches to X. That was the receptors, the little funky receptors I drew. But yeah. Okay. Right. Controlling blood glucose. This comes up in Adams. This comes up in AQA, EdXL. This comes up in all the exam boards for paper 2. Control of blood glucose. So guys, after we eat a meal, let's go through it and then I'll give you some questions on it. So after you eat a meal, what happens to your blood glucose? Yeah, Adam, the pancreas is involved here. This is coming up in your exam, but what happens to your blood glucose level? Yeah, increases. So you want to know, after you eat a meal, blood glucose goes up. Oh, sugar. Can I move that? Yeah, I can. Right, blood glucose goes up. What happens with the pancreas, guys? How does the pancreas respond? If your blood glucose stays high in your blood, you'll fall into a coma. And you can have a diabetic coma, which is not good. So how does your pancreas respond? What's your pancreas do, guys? Well done, Eggmaster. Pancreas is going to release insulin. And here's the tricky bit. Okay, so that bit is kind of cool, but the level kind of 8 to 9 bit is, what does the insulin do that brings your blood glucose back? And what organ do I have hanging out on the right here? Oh, yeah. Insulin converts glucose to glycogen and liver cells. Nice. So over here is the liver. Let me just check. My face might be all over the liver. Yeah, my face is. Right, let's move that. Oh, Sugar Ray Leonard. All right, there we go. Back we go. Over to the liver. Absolutely awesome. So what happens here is blood glucose gets moved in to the liver, and that is by, so if this is our blood glucose levels, have gone up. The blood glucose is put in the liver and it's put into a chain, a polymer called glycogen. So yeah, insulin converts glucose to glycogen in liver. So there you go. That's the kind of level 8 or 9 bit. Quite hard because all these G's people get mixed up. So what happens to, don't forget, if you get a question on this, you've got to say what happens to the blood glucose after. What happens to our blood glucose level now? Now that the glucose has been turned to glycogen and put in the liver, what happens to the blood glucose level? The level of glucose in your blood. Yeah, nice. I'm just going to put a downward. Where's the downward arrow? Oh my days, I can't even find a downward arrow. I'm just going to draw it. Right, yeah, your blood glucose level goes back down to normal. That's called negative feedback. If you're asked about a 6 marker on negative feedback is a change when one level changes and then something is released that brings the change back to the optimum or the normal level. So negative feedback is when your body brings a level that has changed back to the normal level. And this whole situation can be controlled by your brain via electrical impulses you can time with the nervous system if you're asked about negative feedback. So you would detect the blood glucose change, an electrical signal would go to the pancreas along a sensory neuron and cause it to the gland that is acting as a gland, the pancreas, to release insulin. So you could kind of tie it in there. They could ask some really messed up question. They never have, but you never know. Right, guys, what if you've just been to the gym and done a workout, or you haven't eaten since breakfast and you're absolutely feeling tired and starving? What is happening? Homeostasis, yeah, negative feedback. Homeostasis is the control of the levels and they're done via negative feedback. Yeah, so Claire is on it with the control of blood glucose. She has got it. The pancreas releases glucagon. Glucagon is another hormone. Don't forget, guys, hormones are proteins. Okay? Everything's made of protein. Enzymes, antibodies, hormones. So they're made on ribosomes. Enzymes, antibodies, hormones, all made on the ribosomes in your cell. If you ever get a question that tries to link that in. Okay, where are they made in the pancreas cell? Well, these will all be made on ribosomes because they're proteins. So glucagon is released and they're hormones. So they dissolve and travel in the blood. So if you haven't eaten in a while, blood glucose level, goes too low. Again, this is dangerous. If your blood glucose level goes too low, you can go into a coma. All sorts can happen. And the glucagon goes to the liver and says, oi, break this down. This glycogen reverses the process, breaks glycogen into glucose, and that increases your blood glucose level back to normal. So it reverses the process. So yeah, where are we? I'm over. Okay. So yeah, oops. Glucagon breaks glycogen into glucose. By the way, some people like to think of, just to remind yourselves, some people like to break the word insulin down as to in, and then they like this big L in insulin and this I to say insulin liver. So insulin comes out the pancreas, puts glucose in the liver. Insulin. So insulin puts glucose in the liver. Glucagon takes glucose and makes it gone out of the liver. Sometimes those things are worse. They're not helpful because they can mess you around and think, oh, insulin's made in the liver. No, insulin's made in the pancreas. So sometimes those little trick things, they don't work for you. Don't use them. Okay, so yeah. Right, someone asked how could we get a 6 marker on negative feedback. You could get a 6 marker definitely on this, the control of blood glucose, which I'll show you because I've got a question coming up in a second on it. Negative feedback, how they could work that into a 6 marker, they could just say negative feedback is an important process in homeostasis. Describe giving examples, and you could then give an example and say, sod it, I'm just going to talk about the regulation of blood sugar or the control of temperature. That's also negative feedback. When you get hot, you sweat, and that cools your body down, brings it back down to 37 degrees. When you get too cold, you shiver, your muscles contract, and you respire, and you release heat, bringing you back up to 37 degrees. So it's how your body responds to bring a level back. That's a negative feedback. So they could ask you to give examples, or they could just want a general conversation about negative feedback. Okay, you got to know about diabetes type 1. I did have a little video on this, but I don't think I can get that thing playing. How do I play this video? Let me see. Order. I don't think this thing wants to know. Okay. No. Not working out how to do that. No. This don't want to know. Oh. Diabetes. So, okay. Let's go through this. Alright guys, so what do you need to know? You've got type 1 diabetes. Little or no insulin is produced by the cells in the pancreas. So the problem if you have type 1 diabetes is that you don't produce insulin. Instead of the glucose being moved into the liver by the insulin, it just stays in your blood. Now why this is dangerous is if the insulin just stays inside your blood, then you're gonna be in real danger. It's very dangerous. You could end up in a coma. Basically, you've got no glucose in your cells, so you can't do aerobic respiration, so you can't make energy, so organs can fail, all types of bad things can happen. So you're going to end up with a high glucose concentration in the blood, which is dangerous. The only way to treat diabetes type 1, or the best way, not the only way, is with insulin injections. With an insulin injection, you're going to inject insulin into your subcutaneous fat, and it will diffuse into your blood like this, as this person's doing, and this insulin will bring your blood sugar down. But also, on top of that, you can treat it by cutting out your carbohydrates, high sugar foods like carbohydrates, simple and complex carbs. And of course, if you do exercise, you're going to do a lot more aerobic respiration, and that's going to use up the glucose too. So the recommendation is to take your insulin injections, cut down your sugary foods, and do exercise, because that'll increase the use of glucose in aerobic respiration. Okay. Now, diabetes type 2. Does anyone know what causes diabetes type 2? What is the main cause of diabetes type 2, or what's it linked with? Yeah, that's right, Adam. If you're overweight, if you're obese, you can get, lifestyle factors. If you're obese, you can develop diabetes type 2. So if you're, it's been linked with obesity. Your pancreas still makes insulin though. If you have diabetes type 2, your pancreas still makes insulin, but you're right, Claire, you're resistant to insulin. So you see that here, those little purple circles are supposed to be insulin hormone. They're coming along to the liver to say, hey liver, take up the glucose and turn it into glycogen. And the liver is saying, you don't fit the shape no more, you're not coming in. So insulin can no longer do its job. So this is kind of worse, because you've got the insulin, but it's no longer, your cells are no longer listening, responding to the insulin. So you end up with high glucose. So insulin injections won't work, right? there's no point in taking insulin because as an injection because it won't work. So you've just got to cut out the sugars in your diet and do lots of exercise, and that's going to help you reduce your blood glucose as well. There are actually some drugs you can take if you do have diabetes type 2. There are some medicines you can take that reduce your glucose as well. All right, here's a question, guys. See if you can do this. Compare. So with this question, you need to compare how each type of diabetes is caused and suggest how it can be treated. Now, where's my video gone? As in me. I'm here. Yay, I'm back. Okay. Yeah. So. Yeah, so how would you, first of all, what causes diabetes type 1 and what causes diabetes type 2? So diabetes type 1 is caused by not being able to, type 1 caused by the pancreas not producing insulin and you use insulin injections. Perfecto, perfect answer, 2 marks. What about diabetes type 2? Really, for diabetes type 2, your body no longer responds to insulin, you're resistant. No, you don't need to say lifestyle factors. Diabetes type 1 is caused, normally, a lot of people get it from birth. It's caused when your body doesn't actually, the pancreas cells are damaged due to a mutation or inherited, and you can't actually produce insulin. So you need insulin injections. Diabetes type 2 is caused by being obese. However, it's the fact that your body is resistant to insulin. The only way to treat it, it's not the pancreas being resistant to insulin, Claire. It's the liver cells or the muscle cells, or you can just say your cells are resistant to insulin. So the pancreas is still releasing insulin, and the insulin is going through your blood to the liver and trying to say, look, take the glucose in, and the liver's saying, no, I don't listen to you anymore. So the best way to treat that is by exercising and watching your diet, because there's no, if your blood sugar goes too high, you can't inject insulin to get it back down. Yeah, so it's treated with exercise and diet. Awesome. Right. Yeah. Okay, where am I? What am I doing? Oops. I think. Oh gosh. Yeah, those are the answers. Okay, that's longness. Let's. Is there another question? Just one sec. I don't think there is. So one more question on this. Nah, that's it. Cool. Right. Oh no, I speak too soon. So, name the hormone released when blood glucose concentration is too low. And then for 5 marks, explain how the two hormones keep the blood glucose concentration at the correct level in a healthy human body. I'm going over the menstrual cycle after this, okay? Well done, Adam. It's glucagon that's released when your sugar's too low. And then, how do the two hormones keep the blood glucose at the correct level? So you can start with one, talk about one. Obviously, you've already mentioned glucagon in the first part, so they probably won't give you a mark for that, but you'd still use it. But talk about one, then talk about the other, and then you should get the 6 marks. So you can talk about glucagon first if you like. How does glucagon bring your blood glucose level back up when it's low? And then how does insulin bring your blood glucose down when your blood glucose is high? So Eggmaster's got an answer. Glucagon is released, which causes the muscle cells to convert glycogen to glucose. Awesome. And that increases the blood glucose level. That would be 3 marks. And now you need to deal with insulin. So well done, Eggmaster there. And then what about for insulin? Because it says two hormones. I'm back. Anyone got the answer for insulin? So how does insulin control your blood sugar? Pancreas releases insulin, which instructs the liver and muscle cells to take in the glucose and convert it to glycogen. Awesome, guys. Awesome, 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 awesome. So there's your answers. Nice. Yeah, stores it as glycogen. Glycogen's a really good glucose. When glucose is stored in a cell, you won't need this now, but it causes osmosis. Water goes into cells with glucose and makes them explode. So it's much better to store the sugar as glycogen because glycogen doesn't affect osmosis. It's not soluble, so it can't affect water concentration. Right, let's move on. Okay, nice fill in the gaps. Right, you can always watch this back if you want. Pause the video, and I'm going to skim through this. I think you've all on this one, so you all got this now. This is another diabetes one. Name two digestive enzymes produced by the pancreas. Pancreas isn't just involved. It's involved in digestion as well. So it's not just involved in releasing hormones into the bloodstream. It produces enzymes. It's also a digestive organ. At A level, we call it an exocrine organ. It's an endocrine organ which releases hormones, and we call it an exocrine organ because it releases enzymes. Two digestive enzymes could be amylase or protease or lipase. But part of the treatment for someone with diabetes is to pay careful attention to the diet. Give one symptom of diabetes. If you had diabetes, that is more paper one, so I don't think that part will come up. If you had a symptom of imagine you got diabetes. If the glucose is in your blood and not your cells, how are you going to feel? How are you going to feel if the glucose is not in your blood? It's in your blood, but it can't get into your cells. How are you going to feel? Tired. Awesome, Adam. Yeah, tired. You're not going to be able to produce energy. So actually, parts of your body start dying off and stuff with diabetes. If it's left untreated, you can even have amputations and things because parts of the body start dying because they don't have cells. Give one way in which a diabetic may be advised to change their diet. How would you change a diabetic's diet? And then we're going to do menstrual cycle straight after this. Yeah, healthy food. Now, if you're being a bit more specific, which foods do you want to cut out? Less carbs. That's it. Less carbohydrates. Complex carbs, rice, pasta, bread, and also simple carbs, which is like sugar containing carbs. All right. Final two questions. How does this change if you have less carbs? How does that help a diabetic? Yeah, it reduces their glucose levels, so they're not going to go as high. State one other way in which you can treat diabetes. That's right, less carbs. How could you also? Yeah, it decreases the glucose levels. And the last one, how could you treat diabetes? Okay, a prosthetic pancreas, potentially you could have a new pancreas transplanted that releases insulin. Yeah, that would work. Insulin injections. And of course, you can use up the glucose you've had by exercise, going for a walk or doing some aerobic respiration. That will help as well. So exercise, yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, pancreas transplant they've got there. They've got take insulin injections. They should have exercise there as well if they haven't mentioned exercise here. So awesome. Right, let's have a look at the menstrual cycle. So you guys need to know about the menstrual cycle. So let me just get up my menstrual cycle thing. There we go. I want to make that the top. Yep, get rid of that. Over there. Okay, menstrual cycle. Yay, eventually got there. No, that's controlling fertility. We don't want to do controlling fertility. We want to do the menstrual cycle. Where's my menstrual cycle bit? There it is. Okay, what do we do there? Okay, finally. Got the right video eventually there. Okay, so menstrual cycle, guys. You got to know about the menstrual cycle. It's kind of split into 4 stages. So what happens in day 1 to 5 of the menstrual cycle? Does anyone know? Call it menstruation. What's going on there? Basically, when a female, girl, woman is on their period, what's happening? Menstruation. And what is coming out of the vagina? It is the lining of the uterus. That's right, Claire. Breaking down of the lining of the uterus. Yeah, cool. Yeah, don't worry. I have trouble with my spelling, Sophie. So stage 1, during the first 5 days, the lining of the uterus sheds and is passed out of the vagina. This is known as the period. Where am I? I'm always forgetting to put myself back up on here. Boom. Let's move my head out of the way. Let's go over there. All right. So, also, anyone know what hormone is high at this stage? What hormone is high during the first 5 days? Okay, not estrogen, Adam. Another hormone. We're starting the whole cycle again. So the cycle's just ended, day 28. We've just started day 1 to 5. What's the first one? FSH. What does that stand for? Does anyone know what Oh, no. Spelling that's going to be disgusting. Don't bother spelling FSH. It's follicle stimulating hormone. And what does FSH do? Does anyone know what FSH does? Follicle stimulating hormone? Yep. Follicle stimulating hormone. Anyone know what it does? Well done, Claire. Causes an egg to mature. If you prefer, you can say develop or you can say ripen. So we're looking at the level of FSH is going to increase in the first 5 days, and that is going to develop one of the eggs ready to be fertilized. Women have millions of eggs from the day they're born. The day they're born, they have millions and millions of eggs, but each month one is chosen and is developed and released. So FSH is made up here in the brain, in the pituitary gland. How does it travel down to the ovaries and say, hey, get an egg ready? So how does FSH travel down to the ovaries and get an egg ready? In the blood. Well done, Adam. Yeah, so it's just reminding you that hormones dissolve in the blood and they travel in the blood. So pituitary gland is in your brain. Again, it's the master gland. It does so many different things. One of the things it does is release FSH, which travels all the way down through your blood to the ovaries and instructs one of the eggs to get ripened. Now, the follicle is actually a shell around the egg. That's why it's called follicle stimulating hormone. And that shell plays a role, but you don't need to know too much about that. So down here in the ovaries, one of the eggs gets ripe or mature or develops and then is released into the fallopian tube, but not yet. So next hormone, stage 2. So stage 1, summarizing, day 1 to 5, lining of the uterus comes out during the period or menstruation. FSH stimulates an egg. FSH from the pituitary gland travels in the blood to the ovary, stimulates an egg to ripen or mature or develop, but it's not released just yet. I got ahead of myself there. We come to the second stage, and the second stage involves estrogen. And you need to know FSH stimulates estrogen. It's like a relay race. Imagine FSH has done its job, it's got an egg ready, now it says estrogen, your turn. And estrogen says, thank you, I'll take over from here. And estrogen produced in the ovaries is now released. So the baton has been passed on to estrogen. So we're on to stage 2 of the menstrual cycle. And this is roughly day 6 to 13, say. And via a process of negative feedback, another negative feedback example, estrogen tells FSH, go away, we don't need you anymore. So it's pretty unfair. FSH passed the baton to estrogen, and estrogen said, your job's done, you go away now. Because we don't want, why do we not want more eggs to ripen? We don't want to waste them. They're precious things, these eggs. So we only want one released every month. So it's like, right, you've done your job, you've got one ready. Estrogen now instructs FSH, it's my turn to do my bit. And estrogen thickens the lining and starts to build it and develop it. So the main thing you need to know, it develops the lining of the uterus, but also it inhibits FSH. The lining of the uterus is called the endometrium. Watch out for that as a funky word. So the lining of the uterus is called the endometrium, and getting it thick means it's ready for an embryo to be implanted. Now we go to the third role of estrogen. Keep moving myself around here. Okay, the third role of estrogen is to stimulate the release of LH, which is the third hormone that's going to do its job on day 14. So who knows what LH, luteinizing hormone, does? Anybody know what LH does? In the third stage of the menstrual cycle, estrogen has stimulated luteinizing hormone LH, and LH is going to do a job. Doesn't produce the egg, releases the egg. What do we call that process? Well done, Claire. What do we call the process, though, of releasing the egg? It happens around day 14 of the menstrual cycle. When I first learnt about this, I thought on the 14th day of every month, girls released their egg. Of course, that's dumb. Every girl's menstrual cycle starts on a different day of the month. You can track your menstrual cycle by the first day of your period is day 1, and you'll know from the first day you start passing lining out of your vagina, you'll know 14 days after this, my egg is being released. So that's when somebody's at their most fertile and most likely to get pregnant. Yeah, it's called ovulation. Okay, by the way, where's LH made? Anyone? Where is luteinizing hormone made? Is it made in the ovaries or up here with FSH in the pituitary gland? Not the pancreas. No problems. Yeah, pituitary gland. Well done. In the brain, in the pituitary gland. Yeah, just like FSH, it's made there. Whoa. So, yeah, that's right. Pituitary gland. Don't worry, we're nearly done. I'm just going to go through contraception and stuff for those people that need to know about contraception and IVF and that. Let me just see if... Okay, so LH then causes progesterone to be released. Day 14, where are we? Okie dokie, let's just go through that. Yeah, we've got to do controlling fertility as well, then we'll get done. So that's luteinizing hormone, that's its job. Stage 3, day 14, eggs released. Final stage of the menstrual cycle is over to a hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is released. I don't think in AQA you need to know this, but in Edexcel you do. So Adam needs to know this. Yes, that's right, Adam. It maintains the lining. Well done. But you need to know that it's produced by the remains of the shell of the egg. Now, the shell of the egg is called the follicle, hence follicle stimulating hormone, and progesterone is made from that. And the shell is left behind in the ovary, so you can sometimes get away with saying the ovary produces progesterone. But specifically, it's the shell of the egg, which is called the follicle. And sometimes it's called the corpus luteum. Okay, so you don't have to know that if you're doing AQA. No problems. We're going to look at contraception in a second and fertility. Yeah, so if you're doing Edexcel, you've got to know just a little bit extra. No, LH does progesterone in? Yeah, progesterone inhibits both LH and FSH. Well done, yeah, Eggmaster, you're right. You're right there. Yeah, it inhibits both. You don't need to know this if you're doing AQA. You don't need to know this if you're doing Edexcel. But this is just showing you the shell, the follicle in the ovary that releases progesterone. Yeah, I'm going to do a live on the night before the exam as well, Thursday night, where I'll just take any questions on any topic. But like today, it was just really concentrating on this topic. And all these videos you'll find on my channel. I've got all these videos, so you can just watch these, and I'll talk through them on my channel. Yeah, progesterone maintains the lining of the uterus. If there's no pregnancy, progesterone levels drop and the lining comes out. The whole thing begins again. If there is a pregnancy, then you don't need to waste any more eggs. So progesterone inhibits FSH and LH, so you don't ripen more eggs or release more eggs. And that way, during pregnancy, your FSH and LH levels stay low, so you don't waste eggs. Right. Alright, guys. Give yourself 2 minutes if you're still with us to see if you can answer those questions. And then we'll go on to contraception and fertility and then call it a night. If you need to go to bed now, go to bed now. Because you can always rewatch this. I'm just going to see it through. Yeah, the first one's actually FSH, matures the egg. Another name for the egg. The other name for the egg, actually, I haven't mentioned, is ovum. OVUM. You probably don't need to know that. What hormone develops the lining? You're right there, guys. It's estrogen for number 3, so well done. Estrogen's made in the ovaries, which is number 4. The egg is released on day 14. What is the release of the egg called? It's ovulation. Where are the hormones FSH and LH produced? Yeah. Yeah. Looking good. You can always rewatch this, pause, have a go. What do we call it when one hormone inhibits one that made it go up? It's got a weird name. It's negative feedback. It's another example of putting a hormone back to its original level. Putting something back to its original level. So it's an example of negative feedback. Bit of a stretch, though. They probably won't ask you on that. Egg release is not progesterone. What causes the egg to be released? It's one of the pituitary ones. It's LH. 12 is progesterone, which maintains the lining. And the menstrual cycle lasts 28 days. And another name for the uterus lining, bit advanced, is called the endometrium. Endometrium might come up in a question. Weird one that is. What is the name of the process of shedding the lining of the uterus? And that is menstruation. Okay. Right, we're definitely going on to fertility and contraception, so that should only take 10 minutes. Let's do that. Let's zing through that. Yeah. Let's zing the answers. These are all the answers, guys. So there's your answers. So feel free to watch through again. And, if you need to. Right, let's get on and do the final bit. I'm just going to go over fertility. Controlling fertility, I mean. And then let's just zing through controlling fertility and then we'll be done for today. So, controlling fertility. What's being held here? What's this woman holding in her hands? How does this help? Pills, do you know what they contain? Anyone know what is inside those pills? Think about it. Which hormone of the 4 hormones would you put in the pill if you wanted to stop someone getting pregnant? That's right, Adam, it could be combined pill where it would have 2. Estrogen. Eggmaster, why'd you put estrogen in there? Or progesterone. Adam, LH and FSH will make you pregnant, so they'd be good pills if you want to get pregnant. And we do give women LH and FSH because they will make them get pregnant, because they will make them develop more eggs and release more eggs. But estrogen inhibits FSH or progesterone inhibits both. So the best thing if you want to stop getting pregnant is to do estrogen and progesterone. But if you want to get pregnant, like you're having trouble having a baby, then I would recommend giving someone FSH and LH, which is what they do in fertility clinics. Okay, progesterone also stimulates thick mucus. This is another reason why. It creates a barrier which traps the sperm. And the combined pill contains estrogen and progesterone, but it does cause headaches and nausea. As you can see from these photos here. Right, 1 second. Okay. If you block FSH and LH by taking estrogen or progesterone, then the eggs can't be released. You can't get pregnant. Or, I said you can't get pregnant, that's a bit dumb, because they're 99% effective, the combined pill. It means 1 out of every 100 times you have sex, the sperm will, sorry, not the sperm, 1 out of every 100 times you have sex, if it's 99% effective, then 1 out of every 100, the egg will get released. That doesn't mean it's going to meet the sperm. The sperm have still got a big journey and they could be blocked by something else. So, like for instance, the mucus layer is on the cervix of the vagina and that's very thick if someone's taking a progesterone pill. Right. Let's move on to some of the other methods. So, some people don't want to take pills. What's the disadvantage of taking a pill every day if you're a woman to stop getting pregnant? What's the disadvantage to that? What might you do that means you'll get pregnant? Expensive. Side effects. You might get headaches, nausea. Yeah, it could be expensive. What might you forget to do with medicines? I don't know if any of you guys take vitamin pills or anything. You might forget. Some days you just forget. Now, that can be a pretty bad mistake if you happen to get pregnant because you missed one of your pills and suddenly your estrogen and progesterone drop and your body starts releasing eggs. So, yeah, side effects and forgetting to take them. So, We have, if you don't want to take the pills, there's other ways to get estrogen and progesterone in your body. You can have the contraceptive patch, lasts a week. Now you don't have to worry about taking pills for the week. You stick it on your arm like a nicotine patch, it releases the hormones. Now, you can go a step further and have an implant. You can have an injection and say, sorry, I now can have sex for 3 months and not worry about it because I've got my progesterone and estrogen in a 3-month injection. Or you can have an implant which goes under your skin and releases estrogen and progesterone for 3 years. So you don't have to take any pills. Now there's also these devices you need to be aware of. They're called, you have to take the pill every day. That's right, Eggmaster, you've got to take the pill every day, but not if you have a patch or an injection or you have an implant where they'll do a minor operation and push something under your skin into your fat under your skin that will release estrogen and progesterone for up to 3 years. So you'll be like safe from getting pregnant for 3 years. Again, it's not 100% effective. There are these, you need to know about these, they're called intrauterine, meaning inside the uterus devices, intrauterine devices, IUDs for short. Now there's different types. So copper metal ones can be put inside you. You need a nurse to put these in, or a doctor or a nurse, because you have got to have a bit of skill. You can't go shoving stuff into your uterus if you're not a trained nurse or doctor. You get an infection, you could cut yourself. So there's copper ones. Copper kills sperm. It's a natural spermicide. And there's plastic ones as well, and they just tend to disrupt the process. I think they stop the lining being developed, and therefore you can't get pregnant. But also, if you have a copper one, it kills sperm as well. Yeah, you can have the implant removed. Oh yeah, the one under the skin. Yeah, you could have it if you then decide you want to get pregnant. You could have the implant removed. Yeah, there's also a cap that, so those methods are hormone methods, Adam. We're now going to look at the barrier methods. Barrier literally means, like I've got here, a wall that will prevent the sperm reaching the egg. So these are known as barrier methods. These have an advantage over the hormone methods. Condoms are 98% effective, so not as effective as the combined pill. But what do condoms protect you against that the pill doesn't? Condoms or barrier methods have an extra level of protection. STDs, yeah, sexually transmitted disease is good. Do you know the names? Yes, perfect, Adam. Like HIV, gonorrhea. There's quite a few different ones depending on what exam board you're doing. There's different, but they're all correct answers for sexually transmitted. Okay, that's a condom over a banana, obviously. Yeah, there's female condoms as well, which are larger. They go inside the vagina, and they will stop sperm as well. And as it says here, female or male condoms are the only method that protect against sexually transmitted diseases like HIV or gonorrhea, as well as stopping you getting pregnant. So they're like double. Of course, a condom can break. That's a disadvantage. The condom can split and you can get pregnant if it splits. Another method, this is like the cap Adam was talking about. This is the diaphragm, and I'm not talking about the one on the lungs. Ha ha. There's a diaphragm muscle under your lungs, but it's a similar shape. The diaphragm, it's a dome shape. So there's a plastic cap called a diaphragm that you can put in by a doctor or a nurse again, and sits on your cervix and collects any sperm they can't get through. But it has to be fitted by a doctor or a nurse, so that's a disadvantage. And you spray a foam inside it, or a chemical called spermicide. So not only is it a barrier, but it kills the sperm as well. So and then there's the natural method, probably not the least effective method, but basically, if you don't want to get pregnant, what's the worst day to have? If you're trying to not get pregnant, what's the worst day of the month? The worst day of the menstrual cycle to have sex. If you want to avoid being pregnant, yeah, day 14. Probably day 12 or day 10 to day 20. The egg could be hanging about, because due to people's stress levels and situation in their life and whatever, there's a bit of random. It's not perfect, the body. Like, hormone levels can jump or decrease depending on what you're eating, doing, taking, your stress level. So the egg could be released early or late. So this is why the natural method isn't the best method. Yeah, you're most fertile around day 14. So that's the least effective method because it relies on you getting the timing right. The other thing is people can just get carried away. They can get drunk on alcohol. They can get, if they're practicing the natural method, they can get drunk on alcohol or whatever and just go, hey, oops, what did we do? But that's the same with condoms. People can go, oh, we don't have any condoms. Oops, what did we do? If you're taking the pill or you have the 3-year one, you can't make any mistakes there. It's you're getting it on a daily basis. So they have an advantage there. Yeah, sterilization, surgical procedure. This is permanent, okay? Cutting the sperm duct so sperm can't come out the penis, or cutting the fallopian tube so the egg can't be released and meet the sperm. These still, sometimes they backfire, sometimes the tubes reconnect. They just join back together, but this is all, the most extreme. But you're basically saying, I'm not going to have kids. Some people have this if they've had 4 or 5 kids and they're like, I don't want any more kids. And the final method is not having sex at all. Some people are just not going to have sex at all, and that way I'm not getting pregnant. Okay, yeah. You want to go through plant hormones. All right, let's go through plant hormones. I'm not going to do these questions. You can rewatch this, pause the video now, have a go at these questions, and then you can check your answers and put the answers up. There they are. That's the answers to those questions. So you can use that as revision if you rewatch. By the way, I'm just going to go, and if you are doing combined science, I don't think you need, what have I done there? Yay, we're back. Hold on, where am I? Where am I? What have I done there? Give me 1 secondo. Okay. Have I got... I might have to start a new jam. How do I start a new jam? I'm on Jamboard, which is... let me just zing back 1 sec. No, I don't want to do that. Oh, if I go there... Aha! Here we go. Getting my bearings. Alright. Cool. Right. So Eggmaster, you do combined higher. Plant hormones is triple, but I think I do combined. Let me check for you. If you do combine higher, let me just see. Plant structure is plant hormone on AQA. No, if you do combined Eggmaster, you don't have to do plant hormones. So that's really the AQA stuff done. If you're combined, that's all the AQA stuff done. Paper 2. I'm checking now for you, Adam. 1 sec. You're combined, Adam. Yeah, you got to do plant structures. Yeah. So what I'm going to do... Okay. Yeah, I think what we'll do... I'm going to finish there, Adam. But I will go through... I might do a live tomorrow where I'll go through plant structure. So I'm definitely doing one on Thursday as well. But we'll finish there and I'll go through plant structure tomorrow, because plant structure is a bit longer than just plant hormones. You don't need plant hormones though. You guys don't need the plant hormones. Let me just see if you need plant hormones, Adam. No, you don't need plant hormones. That's only for triple. All right, we're going to finish there. And good. Nice one. Yeah. if you go on my site, I've got videos as well on lots of different things as well, like photosynthesis and that kind of stuff. And there are some other lives where I've gone over photosynthesis as well and some plant structure stuff, but you'd have to have a flick through. All right, take care, guys, and nice one. And I'm definitely doing a live on Thursday, the night before the exam, so probably about 8 o'clock. All right, take care. See you later, guys. Oh, by the way, don't forget to share and like. Yeah, my site, that's a really good point. Yeah, my site is called, and you can just YouTube it, you can put it in YouTube, and then it's called Let's Get to the Marks. And hold on, I think it's called at Let's Get to the Marks. Yeah, so it's called Let's Get to the Marks, and you can, there's loads of lives on there, previous lives I've done that have covered some of the stuff, and there's loads of little videos, just silly little 60-second videos. There's shorts which are 60 seconds. If you're doing AQA paper 2, I've got like 20 videos, little videos like that one I had on the menstrual cycle there, and it's just got me talking over them. And there's 60-second ones, or there's ones with exam questions where you can pause the video and have a go at the exam questions at the end. All right, nice one, guys. Take care, and I will see you later. All right, bye bye.